Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Revelation Bible study here at Greensburg Church of the Nazarene. This is week 14. We took a little bit of a break last week, but hey, we're back going strong again here this Tuesday night. We are in chapter 6 tonight. If you hadn't had a chance to watch any of the other videos so far, I encourage you to do so. If you're watching this tonight and you could do me a favor, please hit the share button. That way we can get this video out there to more people and kind of help other people understand this amazing book of the Bible, the book of Revelation. Our study through the book of Revelation is called Tragedy's End, because the book of Revelation is not a book for us to fear. It's not one that you and I, as believers in Jesus Christ, we shouldn't be terrified of what's going to happen, because in the end, no matter how bad this world gets, no matter what is thrown at us, at the end of the day, we know that Jesus has already won the victory, and that you and I, by our faith in him, have a share in his victory. With that being said, there is a warning in the book of Revelation. That warning is to us as believers to cling to the hope that we have in Jesus, to not settle for the lesser powers or the lesser things of this world, but cling only to Jesus and the things of Jesus, and to living the life that is honoring to Jesus. So let me see here. I'm gonna make sure I have all my settings set up here, so that way I can kind of see what's happening. We're gonna be in the chapter 6, like I said, and we're not going very far tonight. We're only gonna make it through verses 1 and 2. Now, as we get into tonight's study, I feel like I need to start off tonight with a kind of a disclaimer and whatnot like that. So just to kind of let you know where I'm at as a person who's studying this and leading the study. I kind of feel like Samwise Gamgee from The Lord of the Rings. If you've not watched Lord of the Rings or you've read the books, but for those that have, you'll understand this reference. There's a point at the very beginning of the story where he comes to the farthest point he's ever gone in his life. He's spent his entire life in his home called the Shire. And as he's getting ready to journey with Frodo to accomplish the task of taking the ring to the elves, he reaches the edge of the Shire and he says, "One more step and I will have gone farther than I've ever gone before." That's kind of where I'm at right now in our study. I've never really gone this far as leading a study through it or studying Revelation this in depth. I've read through the book of Revelation many times, but as far as leading a study through it, this is kind of new for me. I'm kind of in uncharted territory. With that being said, I take great comfort in the fact that in all the commentators that I studied today, that none of them agreed upon how to interpret what we're going to read from here, and I'm not convinced that they know any more or less than I do. So that's strangely comforting. I don't know why, but it is. That's where it kind of brings me to the disclaimer for this episode. Understand, I am going to share with you what I believe what I believe the Lord is saying to me about the book of Revelation. It's based on my understanding of the conversations I've had with the Lord. That doesn't mean that I am necessarily interpreting it correctly, that I know all things about it. It just means I'm doing the best to present this information as my eyes see it. My disclaimer is that's why it's so important for us as Christians to realize that we are all theologians. Whether you're a pastor, a lay member, or you're just brand new to the faith, all Christians are theologians, because we all have a responsibility to share the message of Jesus Christ. And therefore, as believers, we should be studying our Bibles and be ready to give an account of what we believe. And in order to be able to give an accurate and proper account that's in line with the message of God, you and I, we have to be able to study the scriptures for ourselves, to know what it is that God says. So therefore, it's very important you realize that you are a theologian. So it's very important to you that you study the Word of God for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Don't just take any preacher's word for it. Don't just take anybody's word for it. Sit down and read through the book of the Bible, and really wrestle with the contents. And that's how you'll draw closer to God, and that's how you will be ready to give an account. The Holy Spirit, he will bring the words to mind that you need to say and that you need to share. So that being said, let's kind of dig into tonight's verses or study. I'm only going to read 2 verses tonight. And then so I'm going to read through the whole thing, and then we'll kind of go back through a little bit slower like we typically do. So verses 1 and 2 of chapter 6 of the book of Revelation, this is what it reads. It says, I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. And then I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying in a voice like a thunder, Come. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. Kind of an introduction to this section. We've been through the opening, or it's identified that this is the revelation of Jesus. It's not John's revelation. It's the revelation of Jesus shared to the Apostle John and written to the 7 churches that are outlined in chapters 2 and 3. And we just came through that section where we studied the Jesus word to those 7 churches. And now here we went through chapter 4 last week, where John was invited up into heaven and given this beautiful, glorious sight of the Lord who is of the Lamb who was slain, but and all of heaven praising him for the work that he's done, and being the one that is worthy to open the seal, the seals off of the scroll. Remember, in chapter 5, John weeps when he first gets there because he sees this beautiful scroll and no one can be found to open it. It isn't until one of the others by him, one of the angels, turns to him and says, hey, don't worry. The Lion of Judah is going to come, and he is worthy. And John's expecting to see this mighty conqueror walk in. Instead, he sees a lamb that has been slain coming in, and the lamb is worthy to open that scroll. And so that the 7 seals are the 7 seals that have bound that scroll and have held it tight. And Jesus, the Lamb of God, is worthy to open them. And so chapter 6, and for the next several weeks, we're going to be studying these seals that Jesus is going to unopen. And this section, it really is kind of the starting point. So first we're going to study these 7 seals that are opened, but understand that the 7th seal is tied into the 7 trumpets that's going to come after this. And after the 7th trumpet is going to lead into the opening up of the 7 bowls. So these 3 series that we're getting ready to go through and spend a lot of time in, they are very closely tied together. I don't know how much sense we'll make of it, but we're gonna do our best, and we're gonna seek the Lord the best we can. What I find fascinating is that if you read the Old Testament and the minor prophets, you'll come to a prophet by the name of Zechariah. And especially as we dig into these first 4 seals, it's going to talk about these riders on horses. And I want to read a couple of little snippets from Zechariah for you. And there's some echoes of this in John's writing here. I'm not sure if this is what he has in mind, or if maybe the vision, they're sharing a glimpse of some of the same vision. I don't know. I've not had this vision with them. I'm just simply trying to read and interpret it and figure out how all of Scripture flows together, even here in Revelation, to tell us the story of salvation in our Lord Jesus Christ. But anyway, so Zechariah chapter 1 verse 8 says this. It says, during the night I had a vision, and there before me was a man riding a red horse. He was standing among the myrtle trees in a ravine. Behind him were red, brown, and white horses. So this idea of horses being sent out is not a new vision that John's having, but again, Zechariah records this prophet located in the minor prophet section of the Old Testament. In chapter 6 of the same book, Zechariah writes, I looked up again. This is verses 1 and 3. I looked up again, and there before me was 4 chariots coming out from between 2 mountains of bronze. The first chariot had red horses, the second black, the third white, and the fourth dappled, all of them powerful. So again, we see this idea, this imagery of different colored horses. And I find it interesting that in Zechariah, the horses are red. And in chapter 1, verse 8, he says red, brown, and then white horses. And then when he comes to these horses again in chapter 6, he refers to red horses, black horses, white horses, and then dappled horses. So it's almost like the order's jumbled up, almost like the order of the colors don't really matter that much. I'm not sure. I really, again, I haven't studied that far enough ahead in Revelation yet to really give us a good idea. But I'm intrigued now by how that's going to play out as we study moving forward. But that's just kind of an introduction to this section as we dig into it. This imagery of horses being brought in is not just necessarily unique to John, but Zechariah the prophet had a similar type of vision with these different colored horses. And here John is up in heaven, and he's getting a glimpse of these horses as well. All right, let's continue on here. All right, taking a closer look at verse 1, and we're going to go very slowly through verse 1. Again, we're only going through 2 verses tonight. And just to kind of let you know, I was debating whether or not, knowing that the first seal is only 2 verses, like, is that going to be enough to make up a whole study on? And the more I began to study this afternoon, I began to wonder if one study was enough to get through our study of the first seal. But we're going to do our best, and hopefully we'll be done at somewhat of a reasonable time. So anyway, so verse 1, it says, I being John, watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. So this is the first seal that's been popped off this scroll. Notice it's not going to talk about, John's not going to see the words on the scroll. He's not going to be able to see that because he's not the one who's worthy to open it and look at it. As a matter of fact, Jesus right now, who's the Lamb of God, is the one popping the seals off of the scroll, because he's the one who's worthy to open it. And understand the seal, like the different layers of the scroll are sealed shut. So he pops the first seal off, and he's able to unscroll a little bit and see what's on there. But Jesus is the one who is reading this. So what we're reading here in Revelation 6 is what John, the seer, is seeing. He is simply recording the facts as he sees them happening, which is in line with what Jesus commanded him to do in Revelation chapter 1. Remember, Jesus tells John, write down what you see and what you hear. And that's what John does. So it says, I watched as the Lamb open the first of the 7 seals. So this is the very first one. Let's see, continuing on. Let's see. Not that far ahead yet. Sorry. One of this to understand, you guys, as I'm going through this and studying it for myself, you guys are kind of getting my thoughts all jumbled together. I haven't sat down and taken my research notes and put it in a pretty outline form for you. This is me trying to work through this for myself, and I'm sharing it with you. So as I'm working through it, you're working through it with me. Maybe at some point down the road, I'll make something a little bit more coherent than what these videos have portrayed so far. But that's kind of where we're at. So the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying aloud in a voice like thunder. This idea of thunder, it is a proclamation from declaring that there is some type of special revelation coming. Think back to the book of Exodus, and when Moses is getting the 10 commandments from God, what is it? There's thunder and lightning and rumblings upon the holy mountain where Moses is at. It's a sign that God is getting ready to make a announcement of some sort. There's a special revelation that God is getting ready to share with mankind, and mankind needs to be taking notice of it. And when a thunder, you notice it. You can't. It's loud. It's something you can't ignore. When you hear thunder, it catches your attention. And so this idea of a loud thunder-like sound, the thunder-like voice, it's a calling of attention that God is getting ready to announce something, that there's something important about to happen, and mankind better be paying attention. And that's kind of what's happening even here in this vision of heaven. It's God is about to make an announcement. So let's have our ears ready to hear what God has to say. So the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, come. This is an invitation. But notice it's one of the 4 living creatures that surround the throne of God saying this, come. And what I thought was cool about this is this come is the 4 creatures saying it to Jesus, the one who's opening the seal, saying, come, Come, Jesus, come quick. It's an invitation inviting Jesus to come into creation for his second coming. Creation is saying, Jesus, Lord Jesus, come. We're inviting you. Understand, as these seals are opened and the scroll is unrolled, all these different woes are about to happen. All these different judgments and all these different things are about to occur. But the four creatures are inviting Jesus to come because they know that no matter how bad it gets here on earth, no matter how desperate the situation comes, that at the end of the day, Jesus has already won the victory. And you and I, if we cling to faith, share in that victory. So they're inviting Jesus to come because the sooner all these bad things happen, the sooner those who belong with their Lord will be with their Lord. And his victory reign, which is already reigning, but his victory, his complete and total victory and his fullness will be revealed to all of creation. And that's the moment all of creation is groaning for. Jesus, by his work on the cross, he bought us full salvation for you and I. By faith in Jesus, our sins are forgiven and we are free to receive the Spirit who can enable us to go sin no more and make disciples of all nations. It's the Spirit that makes us bold, the Spirit that gives us hope. But even after that, you and I, we are citizens of the kingdom of heaven, but we're still living here on this earth and surrounded by darkness, surrounded by death, surrounded by sin, all the things that can attempt to distract us and stop us from following God and entering into his kingdom. Well, remember, the second coming, it's a blessing to us as believers because it means that death is finally over and defeated, that it already has no grip on you and I, but it no longer has a reign on this earth or in creation. Sin no longer has that power over anyone because it's been destroyed. Darkness in its fullness has been destroyed. So that second coming, when Jesus comes back again, that's a moment of hope for us. It's what our souls are longing for. We don't have to have the patience to endure this broken, messed up world because all of this world will be in submission to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So when the four creatures are saying, or the four creatures are crying out in a loud voice, come, they are inviting Jesus to come. They're inviting all these woes, all these judgments to begin, so that way it only brings us that much closer to the day our Lord returns. So that's verse 1. We made it through verse 1, and that was 17 minutes of the video. So you can see why we're only doing 2 verses. All right, continuing on to verse 2. All right. I don't know why that was right there. Figure out where I'm at here for a second. Verse 2, it says, I looked, and there before me was a white horse. And this is where when I made that disclaimer in the beginning that nobody really knows what's happening here, and it's a lot of debate. But a lot of the commentators want to say that there's this white horse, and the rider on this white horse is Jesus. And as we get to this study through this video, I'm going to point out why I disagree with that idea that it's being Jesus. But first, let me talk about this white horse. What is the white horse? This white horse depicts. Hold on a second. I'll just read all of verse 2, and then we'll come back to this. It says, I looked, and therefore before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode it as a conqueror bent on conquest. All right, so this idea of a white horse. A white horse was not common for the battlefield, and there's a reason for that. White is very noticeable, especially on the battlefield, and a white horse would stick out like a sore thumb. And if there's anything you don't want to happen to you as a soldier, it's you do not want to stick out like a sore thumb on the battlefield, especially when there's enemy snipers hiding in the tree lines or hiding all around you. You do not want to stick out. You want to blend in. You want to be able to go unnoticed because as long as you go unnoticed, the likelihood for something bad happening to you is good. But the minute you're noticed and someone sees you in a war zone, that's when bad things start happening. And so a white horse is not common for the battlefield. Matter of fact, a white horse was more common as a part of a victory parade because a white horse was symbolic of victory. To the Romans especially, this idea of a white horse was emblematic of war, but it was also a sign of victory in war. And So I looked, and there before me was a white horse. So we know that this white horse is pointing to us to something about battle. And we also know that because later on in verse 2 it talks about, it says its rider held a bow. Um, it has a bow in its hand. A bow is another instrument of war. Why would someone be riding a white horse? Now, again, it's not normal for them to ride it to the battlefield, but so what it's saying here is this person that's riding this white horse is certain of victory, is certain that it's going to come out the way they want it to. And they are holding an instrument of war in their hands. And then it goes on to say he was given a crown and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. All right, so let's make some sense of this, okay? Now, I just told you a minute ago that I do not believe this is Jesus. I don't believe this is referring to Jesus. And here's the number one reason why. It tells us that the Lamb opened the first of the seven seals. The Lamb is the one who opened the seals. And every time that Jesus has entered the scene up until this point, especially when we read in chapter 5, there was this great host of praise that followed him. That's not what's happening here. And we just talked about how the four living creatures are calling out to Jesus and telling him to come, but knowing that these seven instruments, this destruction and judgment is going to come first, that they know that it has to come first before Jesus comes. So they are inviting Jesus to come, but knowing it's going to bring these other things first. So the Lamb is the one that's opening the seal. So I don't think the Lamb is opening the seal and is going to continue opening the seals, because the Lamb opens every one of the seven seals. Why would he be opening seven seals and riding out on a horse? That doesn't make sense. Now I know he's God and he can be everywhere at once, but to me it doesn't make sense for the imagery that's being used here. Also, if you continue to look, it does say that its rider held a bow and he was given a crown. We know Jesus has been crowned King of Kings and Lord of Lords, so that could kind of tilt it that way a little bit. But there's a detail right before that. That fact that the rider is holding a bow. And throughout the book of Revelation and elsewhere in Scripture, Jesus is never once referred to as a person holding a bow as an instrument of war. It's always talks to us about Jesus holding a sword of truth. And that's the word of his mouth. And that's not being referenced here. It's saying it's a bow, this instrument of warfare. And so that, to me, doesn't point to Jesus. It points to something else. What that something else is, I don't know 100% for sure. But I do know, I am confident in saying I do not believe that this first rider is referring to Jesus. John MacArthur, in his commentary, he talks about that this rider is the Antichrist. And I don't know that I would go that far either. I know that the Antichrist is going to come. He's going to fool a lot of people. But I'm just not confident in that. But I do think that this points us to something in that direction. This idea of it looked, and before me was a white horse. So it's a white horse that's a symbol of warfare, but victory in warfare. So it's someone's going to be victorious. And it's a rider that held a bow. But notice, MacArthur points out that this bow has no arrows with it, which means he wins. He has this imagery of warfare, but he doesn't use the weapons of war to win it. Let's see. There was something else I was going to talk about with that. So whoever this is on this horse is going to conquer in the same manner that Jesus conquered, in a way that mimics it to an extent. Remember, Jesus' victory is complete and it's final. And we know that in the end he wins no matter how bad it gets. But this rider on the white horse is riding a symbol of victory. He's carrying a bow with no arrows, and he is given a crown. So he is given the authority to rule. And he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. And that's the key right there. He rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. And that's not Jesus. Jesus, as we read, yes, he's going to defeat sin and darkness, but he's not out to conquer the world. He's out to save the world and rid the world of sin and death. So that to me again, that contradicts who Jesus is. So what's this pointing to, Jason? If it's not pointing to Jesus, it's not pointing to Antichrist, I think it's pointing to Antichrist, a multiple Antichrist. And here's why I think about that. If we sit down and we study human history, you will study great and mighty empires from the beginning of time to where we are right now. Think, the Chinese dynasties. There's bunches of dynasties. Hundreds of years of human history are in China, wrapped up in those dynasties. Then we have the Egyptians that rise up to power. We have the Babylonians, the Assyrians. We have the Turks. We have the Holy Roman Empire. We have the Roman Empire. We have the Mongolians. We have the British Empire. And we have the different kingdoms and countries around the world even today. And how did they rise to power? They rose to power through violence and conquering. So think about this from the writing of this. The Romans pretty much have conquered most of the known world. There is peace in the Roman Empire. Why? Because the Romans have conquered it, and they have made everybody Roman and made them submit to their rules. And if you don't submit to the rules, what happens? They kill you. So they've achieved peace, but it's not real peace, though, is it? You don't achieve real peace by conquering everybody. Because at some point, when you force everyone to bow and kneel before you, this is why in the end, those who do not take side with Jesus, that's why they're destroyed in the end. That's why they're cast into the lake of fire. Because when you conquer someone, at some point, you can oppress them, you can keep them down, you can keep them in as slaves, but at some point, those who are oppressed, those who are held under the thumb, at some point are going to rise up and rise against you. And that's played out throughout all of human history. The Romans were in power for a while, but guess what? The crumbling began within, and then outsiders were able to come in and attack them because of their weak strands. But again, because their empire was so vast and they had conquered so many people and they had done it with such brutality that at some point people were going to have enough, because you can only push people so far until they say enough is enough. And so the Romans are kind of a good example of this. They achieved world peace for a time, but it wasn't true peace. It wasn't the real peace. It was not the peace of God. It's not the peace of God or the peace of Jesus that's going to reign eternally, because death and sin are still in it. And the kingdom that is built, any kingdom that's built by man, separate from the love and the law of God, is a kingdom built through violence and falsity, and it's secured in a false peace. So at some point, that false peace, that false charade, that false cloak that's over is going to be stripped away, and it's going to fall by the wayside. It's going to crumble. And again, that's why we've seen throughout human history that these mighty empires, they rise for a time, and there's peace. But after a while, they begin to crumble, and that peace vanishes. Because no matter how we achieve it, if you achieve it without God, it's not true peace. And those of us who are believers, that's why it's important that we have the peace of God in our hearts, because the world around us is not living by the law of God. They're not seeking God and not loving God. And so any peace that's existent in our nation or any other nation or in the lives of those who are not following God, it's a false peace. It's only there for a time. But at some point, that cloak is going to disappear and fear is going to take a hold again. But those of us who have Jesus in our hearts and we are able to cling to that hope, no matter how bad this world gets, we know Jesus wins, because that's a hope that no one can take away from us. So this idea of a rider on a horse, on a white horse, is this idea of these false leaders who are rising up to reign in peace. But it's only for a short time. It doesn't last forever. They don't conquer the way Jesus. They aren't after the same thing Jesus is. They're after achieving peace, but peace to those conquerors, the people that are out conquering the world, saying, "I'm going to do it." So in the name of peace, they're doing it from their own understanding of peace, and oftentimes that idea of peace is separate from God's. And this idea, this is what should scare us a little bit. Okay, it says it's rider held a bow, which means he's a weapon of war, but he doesn't have any arrows in it. He doesn't intend to shoot an armor in it, which means he's going, and he was given a crown. So these false leaders, we give them the crown. They don't take it by force. We give it to them because they are promising us what? They're promising us peace. That's one of the things that we long for. We want to know that we are secure and safe in our world. We want to know that the things that we care about are protected and they're not going to go away from us. And so oftentimes If someone comes along and says, I promise you, I will give you peace in your lifetime. I will keep you safe. I will keep your family safe. I'll keep your things safe. I'll keep your way of life safe. I'll keep your thinking safe. I'll keep your political affiliations safe. That's why we're quick to give them our allegiance, because they're promising what we really long for in our heart, which is stability. But again, the peace that they're offering us, because it's void of God, it's not the peace that Jesus is offering to us is destined to fall, because it's not true peace. It may have pieces of the real peace of God, but it's not his. There's only one peace. There's only one true everlasting peace, and that's Jesus Christ. Anything else than that is sinking sand. We gotta build our castle on the rock, and that rock is Jesus Christ. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He's the one who loved us enough to die on a cross for us. And he's promised us that he's going to come back again. And if we are hold true to that no matter what happens, we get to reign with him. And that's where our hope should rely on. That's where we should be building our faith upon. And that's where our peace should reside, in that unshakable, unmovable, undefeatable kingdom of God, because our King is undefeated. Not in any people here, not in any false hopes that they offer us. Let's see. There's more I was going to talk about with that. Let me see here. We give him a false crown. He rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing one of the points I wanted to make tonight. Give me just a minute here. Now, oftentimes, too, these people, here it is. T.E. Martin, the Nazarene theologian, writes it this way. He says, the white horse and its rider depict the conquerors who have ridden roughshod over innocent men, women, and children. Meaning that the people that are fighting and trying to achieve peace apart from God and promising us all these pieces, they will do whatever it takes to keep their promise to us and to establish their definition of peace. And they will run over anybody in their path to do so. And again, that's not Jesus. That is not God. Again, sometimes the message of Jesus is going to hurt our feelings. Sometimes it's going to be not what we want it to be. But he's not doing it because he wants to run us over. He's not doing it because he wants to coerce us into following him. He's doing it because he loves us and he wants us to know the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts our feelings. Sometimes the truth needs to be said so we can change how we're living and begin living in a more God-honoring way, in a way that's healthier for you and I to live, in a way that's healthier for our relationships between one another. But when we choose to seek peace through other means, and we choose to live by other means, peace isn't possible. Man, this is really running parallel to our series right now on Sunday mornings here at Greensburg Church of the Nazarene called Peace with One Another. And we're talking about that. We are craving this peace and this stability. But without God, it's not possible. We may achieve it for a short time, but over time it will disappear. Even in our own country, just stop and think about it for a second. At the very beginning, we are fighting against the British. But why? Because we have taxation without representation. And we're just so sick of what the king is telling us. So what do? We go to war. We're those 13 colonies that were rising up against this mighty British Empire. There's your story of, they have British is trying to achieve world peace by conquering everyone. But then we get sick of their baloney, and we dump their tea in the harbor, and the British get mad about that because you know how they are about their tea. And we go to war with them. But remember, those 13 colonies, they didn't see eye to eye when that first started out, and they made a compromise. Some of the colonies were already against slavery, and they didn't want it, and some of the other ones were. And so the original 13 colonies made a compromise in order to achieve what? To achieve peace. When the founding fathers formed our country, they knew at some point slavery was going to become an issue again. But they did nothing to achieve it. Why? Because achieving peace separated from the British Empire was more important at the time. See what I'm talking about? When we seek kingdoms of peace in this world separate from God, they don't last. And boy, that didn't last. It lasted for about 100 years. And then in the 1860s, our country divided themselves and they went to war over the issue of slavery. Well, state rights and slavery was mixed in with that. So they went to war, didn't they? We know how that war worked out and how the outcome was, and we thought that was the end of it, right? We thought, We thought, well, we fought this war over slavery. Slavery's ended. That's the end of everything. Everyone's going to be treated equal, and that's the end of that story, right? But it wasn't. 100 years later, we begin the civil rights movement. So people that were no longer considered slaves can now actually be treated as equal people. Remember, that is again, right? We thought we achieved peace from victory in the Civil War, peace without slavery, and then 100 years pass, and we're in the civil rights movement. In a lot of ways, we're still dealing with that same issue in our country. Again, I'm not trying to be political. I'm just trying to point out to you, when we establish peace separate from the laws of God and the love being in the love of God and from God in our hearts, this is what happens. It's a peace that does not last. We have to stop searching for peace outside of Jesus. It is just not possible. It doesn't happen. There will always be conflict outside of him. And Lord knows there's going to be conflict even within the body of Christ. But even then, in the body of Christ, it's a little bit different, because we still know we share that bond in Jesus, at least hopefully. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. Again, we've seen this time on time again. Those leaders of our world, those who thirst for power and to dominate the world, promise us peace, but they will do whatever it takes to get there, and they'll run over anybody to achieve that peace. And the scary thing is, so often than not, because we so much crave that peace and stability, we will hand them the crown and say, you know what, I want peace. I don't care who you have to hurt to get it that way. But the peace I want is my version of peace, and your version and my version of peace very closely aligns with yours. So I'm going to throw my weight of allegiance behind you. But again, that's not what Jesus is calling us to. That's not what we were designed to be at peace with God. And only with peace with God can we achieve peace with one another. But the sad thing is, I don't know where this is in here somewhere in these notes. Let's see if I can find it. We're kind of wrapping this up here. It says, I don't know his name, but he's a theologian with the last name Plummer. And he put, a strife there must be between the powers of the earth and the powers of the heaven. The gospel did not inaugurate a reign of earthly peace, but the end is not doubtful. So when Jesus came and died on the cross, it was not, and he rose again, it was not to establish peace here on earth. He's going to come back, and the peace on earth is going to be when he reigns forevermore, and all of creation is set free from the powers of sin and death. And sin and death are cast into the lake of fire. And all those who refuse to have faith in Jesus are cast into the lake of fire. But notice, from its very get-go, Jesus came and he gave this message, and it was a message so radical, so different. It was talking about loving God and loving others, and loving others like yourself, and putting God first, and living holy life, and not sinning no more. He talked about these things, and what happened? The world hated him for it, to the point where they put him on a cross. Now darkness thought they had won, but by Jesus' death on the cross, it paved the way for his resurrection. That really brought victory for you and I through Jesus. But even after that fact, that didn't bring peace. I was talking about this with somebody else, and I think it was in the devotional handout for the Peaceful Familiar series. Talked about how when we encounter the cross of Jesus, that's not a moment where you and I, when we first came to know Jesus, that was not a peaceful moment. In that moment, we encountered Jesus and his cross, and we looked at that man who was beaten beyond recognition. We saw the cross that he was carrying. We realized that weight of that cross was our sin, and it was to our sin that he was nailed, and it was to our sin that he died. We know exactly how much our sin costs, and when we look at Jesus and his cross, and we were confronted with that in his truth, that moment we gave our lives to Jesus, it was not a peaceful moment, because we were convicted. It wasn't the Spirit who brought shame and guilt into our lives. It was our own decisions, our own thinking, our own willfulness to go against the law of God. But when we encountered Jesus for the first time in our lives, we encountered truth, and the mirror was held up to us, and we saw who we really were. We saw the monsters that we truly were, and that we were the ones that put him on that cross. We were the ones who were disobedient to God. So that was not a peaceful moment. The Spirit brought conviction into our lives, and because we were feeling conviction, our own sinfulness made us feel guilty and ashamed. But peace came after that into our hearts. Remember, that's when we surrendered and said, Jesus, I realized I messed up. And we prayed and asked for forgiveness, and we found forgiveness in Jesus Christ. That's when we experienced the peace of God in our hearts. So when Jesus came that first time, it was not to establish peace on earth. It was to establish peace in our hearts. It's a peace not of this world. It's a peace that's the peace of God, the Alpha and the Omega. So there is a strife, there's a conflict between the peace of Jesus and the sin and death that is this world. But many trials, Plummer goes on to say, he goes, many trials and afflictions are to trouble the earth, but through all, and as we read through these 7 seals, as each scroll is unrolled, and it talks about people like this white rider who are going to come and with no arrows with their bow, and we're going to give them the crown, and they're going to try and achieve peace apart from God, and we're going to let them, because that's what we really are after, only to find out that it's not a lasting peace. And there's other seals that are going to be unrolled here that are going to talk about terrible things happening and judgment and things being poured out. But what this book of Revelation is not about those things. Yes, it's telling us about the judgment. It's telling us about the destruction that's coming. It's telling us that we can't find peace in this world. But more importantly, it's telling us we can find peace. Our peace and our hope rest in the one who is worthy to open the seals. That no matter how bad it gets, many trials and afflictions are to trouble the earth. But through all, God is working to bring his church triumphantly through the struggle. The church will come out triumphant in the end if we cling to Jesus Christ, because he is our hope. He is our peace. And I hope that you find peace with him. It's not going to be easy to live the life God's calling us to in this world. It's not going to be any easier as we go as the darkness around us gets thicker and as the evil convulses. And I'm going to kind of close with that point. So often we read in the Gospels where Jesus casts out a demon. And this has been a very big topic with me with some of you here recently. And every time we see Jesus cast out a demon, we see evil convulse. There's a little boy that Jesus cast a demon out, and as Jesus casts the demon, what's it do? It throws the boy on the ground, and the boy begins to squirm a little bit and seize up. And then the demon comes out, and it's like the boy's dead. Evil does not want to give up. Evil does not want to let go. But it cannot withstand the power of Jesus. So evil, as we get closer to this day where Jesus returns, evil is going to convulse, because why? It knows its end is coming. It's one day closer. It's one step closer. It's 1 minute closer to oblivion, to its final destruction. But it doesn't want to let go. It doesn't want to be defeated. But no matter how much it wills, no matter how much it's determined to defeat the powers of light, it can't, because it has already lost. Evil and death signed its own death warrant the moment it nailed Jesus to that cross. And it was declared the ultimate loser when he rose again. And you and I, we can share in that ultimate victory. We can have that hope reigning in our lives if we surrender our lives to Jesus. And surrendering our lives to Jesus means that we seek forgiveness, but we get up and go sin no more. Well, that's all I have for this week, and I just pray that that's you. Don't let the things of this world scare you, because no matter how bad it gets, no matter how loud the dog barks, that dog's days are numbered. God bless you and have a great night.